Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics, and this is the PHLSTER Floodlight. Since Kydex came on the scene, there's been an explosion of holster makers, from large-scale, professional, we only do holsters, this is what we do 24/7 for a living, to guys who do it as a hobby for their friends in their garage. And because of that, innovation has been awesome. Some of the greatest innovations come from some of the smallest shops, and they're able to patent those things and license them out for other people to use them and share in the wealth. Because ultimately we're looking for the best possible holster to fit all of our needs, our lifestyle, our carry position, so on and so forth. But because we live in a capitalist society, there's always a race for the latest and greatest product, and holsters have to react to that very, very quickly. If a major manufacturer changes the footprint of their weapon-mounted light, or a new gun type comes into existence which differentiates or departs from previous or types of guns, if you will, then holster companies have to be prepared to provide a product for them if that happens. I remember even as recently as the early 2000s, a new gun would come out and you wouldn't see a holster for it because the holster makers were waiting for enough guns to be sold to make it profitable to make a holster for it. And that was a little bit aggravating if you got the newest, latest, and greatest gun, because traditionally holsters fit the specific gun they're made for. Sometimes you can get away with, like say for Glock as an example, you can use a 17 holster for a 19 and maybe even a 26, but it doesn't necessarily work the other way. Now if you add a weapon light to that Glock, well, it's probably married to that specific weapon light and that specific gun. There was very, very little leeway in regards to what you could get away with without having to modify yourself, and sometimes modifying weakened the holster, or in the case of duty holsters, made it less secure, and that's not necessarily a good thing. I'm just like the rest of the shooting community when it comes to holsters. I'm looking for the best holster that fits my lifestyle. It's got to be able to do what I want it to do. Since I primarily carry concealed and I almost exclusively carry at the appendix, the holster has to lend itself very well to those two conditions. I want a holster that's going to give me a shooter's grip, which I'll get into, and is going to allow me to carry a gun with my weapon-mounted light, because I never carry a gun without a weapon-mounted light if the gun can accept a weapon-mounted light, and there's holster options available for it. So that's something I definitely search for in a holster. But because I'm an instructor, I do tend to sometimes switch guns. I may go from a Glock to a M&P, or an M&P to an FN. I'm pretty boring when it comes to variety. Those three major manufacturers are pretty much all the variety I currently have. But it's still a fact that I have to contend with. I don't want to have to carry and lug around a bunch of holsters with me. Now, if that's not necessarily your case, you might also be in a position where you have just 2 or 3 guns of the same make, but they're not the same model, and you want to be able to use the same holster depending on conditions. I know for a lot of guys, when it gets into the winter months and they're able to wear a jacket, they tend to carry a larger firearm because they feel like, okay, I can conceal my larger firearm during these winter months, fall and winter months. In the summer, they'll go to a smaller gun, but they may still use a weapon-mounted light on both their guns, and sometimes holster options just aren't there. So enter the PHLSTER Floodlight. The PHLSTER Floodlight indexes to the specific light type, the Surefire X300 Ultra A or B model, and accepts the previous 2 generations. So your 500, your 600 lumen, and now your 1000 lumen weapon model or weapon light footprints are going to work with the floodlight. Since it indexes to the light, the gun type is more or less irrelevant, although there are some caveats to that, some asterisks, if you will, which are available on the website. I'll put them up on the screen. Gun types are known to fit. Because it indexes the light, the gun type is somewhat irrelevant. If the gun accepts a weapon-mounted light, then it's going to work with this holster. And like I said, since I switched gun types, it's something that I was definitely interested in. Now, this isn't the first holster to do this by a long shot. There's other holsters out there that already do it. But there's still room for innovation in pretty much any category. And the holster category that indexes to the light is definitely a newer concept. And it's nice to see a holster maker working on some innovative features that previous holsters didn't necessarily offer. First things is definitely worth talking about the floodlight is it is reversible. I can use it left-handed or right-handed, which is very, very appealing to me because while I am a dominant left-handed shooter, I do carry and shoot right-handed as well, because as a left-handed person I was kind of predestined to have to be somewhat ambidextrous. So it's something that I pursued in my shooting. It's something that I want to do. And since I teach firearms, I want to be able to address left and right-handed shooters. But usually the left-handed shooters are not really well taken care of. So it's nice to have a holster that out of the box, out of the gate, from initial release, can be reversed for left or right-handed carry. And for those of you left-handed shooters that are concerned about it, and I know you've probably experienced this in the past, sometimes your reversible holsters aren't, meaning that you reverse it, you holster up, you go about your day, and the holster pinches and hits the magazine release because it's set up for right-handed carry. They didn't think about the fact that the Kydex could press in and release the magazine of the gun, which is a huge issue for concealed carry or just any carry in general. You don't want your magazine release to be hit without your knowledge. You want to do it yourself intentionally and never any other situation where that would happen. This is something I brought to PHLSTER's attention very early and was incorporated into the design, the final design of the Floodlight. So if you're left-handed and you're going to buy a Floodlight, you can rest assured that your holster is not going to hit your magazine release. Another feature that's not necessarily unique, but it's nice that it's optional, is you can go with clips or loops. I have a pretty tumultuous relationship with the loops as far as securing the holster. I prefer clips, even though they're not as secure. They are faster in and out of the pants. It's much easier to set up. It's much easier to go about your day, as long as the clips themselves are secure and the gun shifting, sitting in cars, things like that won't press up out of the belt. So it has to be a good clip with a good deep hook underneath so it locks into the belt securely and it doesn't come unsecure until you want it to. My biggest problem with loops traditionally has been they take away my shooter's grip. They let the gun sag in the belt line and they let the grip of the gun sit against the belt line. So in a draw stroke, I would have to shift the firearm up to get my fingers underneath it, which is not something I want to have to do in my draw stroke. With the design of the Floodlight and the positioning of the loops in regards to the body, that's not necessarily an issue that I've experienced when using a properly sized belt, either a 1.5 or 1.75. I've still got my shooter's grip. I can still get my grip underneath there. Even if I'm sitting in a car for 20 minutes or an hour and I stand up, I don't have to reposition my holster, which is something that's definitely appealing to me. And the last just general feature on the body of the holster is the optional claw or wedge or whatever you want to call it to dig the gun deeper into your body if your body type requires that for concealment so your gun doesn't print. Everybody wants to save money, so sometimes holster manufacturers save money on hardware. They'll buy the spacers, the larger ones, and they'll slice them up like a cucumber in order to get more bang for their buck when they're actually attaching their hardware to the holster, providing hardware for you to attach your hardware, be it loops, clips, whatever, to the holster. One thing I've always loved about PHLSTER is they don't skimp in any department when it comes to hardware. I'm getting good screws, good nuts, good hard plastic, good ABS or PVS polyamide. I'm getting high quality materials. They're not trying to make things out of Kydex that shouldn't be made out of Kydex, such as belt clips, belt loops, wings, things like that. Everything is high quality, which is something you definitely have to appreciate, because I expect a holster to last me at least a year. Some people don't like to hear that, but holsters are perishable items. I've had really high, I still have really high quality holsters that after a year and a half of wear developed wear points that had weakened because Kydex is heat sensitive, and continuous exposure to hot guns and body heat in general over time can weaken the material. And they would crack at certain high stress points, and then okay, the holster's in the trash, but I got a year out of it, so it was money well spent. And if they still make that model and I still like that holster, I'd go ahead and pick up another one. Another innovative feature for the light indexing holster is the shock cord. Now some people, they're like, oh, it's just got some cord on it, what's the big deal? This allows you to wrap in tension because of the washer if you want to add additional tension to the firearm itself in the holster. Whereas on the light side, you have screws and spacers with the little rubber spacers that allow you to tighten down tension on the light side of the gun. So now I've got two options to increase or decrease tension on the firearm if I'm switching firearms types. The light tension is pretty much going to be consistent. It's a Surefire X300, either A model or B model. You adjust the tension for that, and regardless of the gun you put it in there, the tension should be good. But if I change over from a Glock to the slimmer profile of, say, an M&P, I may have to do a wrap and tuck on the shock cord to give me a little bit more tension on the top side where the actual firearm slide and frame sits. I've been using the Floodlight for a couple months now, both for everyday carry as well as teaching classes, as well as some other holsters I'm playing with. I like it a lot. I think it does exactly what I want it to do. Another cool thing about it is the overall length accommodates your full-size guns or your compact guns with comps, which are a thing. It's no longer a fad anymore. There's a lot of people who are carrying comps full-time because of the added benefits that they give you, and all the tinkering that needs to be done is more or less done at this point. At this point, it's just a race to the bottom as far as who's going to manufacture what comp, and is it actually going to be better or worse. But as long as the comp follows the same general profile, the firearm and what's actually going to work, and it doesn't try to do anything so different that it's going to change the overall linear profile of the firearm. It's going to work with the floodlight, which is something that's definitely beneficial because new technology is going to come along. Right now, mostly comps. I don't expect Surefire to change the footprint on the X300 Ultra anytime soon. So this holster is going to last you. Being able to go from clips to loops, adjust the tension on the gun side, adjust the tension on the light side, add a claw or wedge to press the gun deeper into the body, and the holster, regardless of whether you're using loops or clips, is going to give you that shooter's grip, even coming from a seated position without having to reshift the gun, are all great features that you want in a holster. The price is reasonable, and it's something that I would definitely recommend to people who are going to carry a weapon-mounted light and occasionally change their gun size or their gun brand. So it's something to definitely consider. I'm Eric Allen with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly. Super light sensitive, so even though I'm in the shade without sunglasses on, I feel like powder, like I should scurry into the basement and wait for the sun to go down. I don't know if that's a byproduct of just weak pigment in my eyes or the fact that I'm half mole person. I don't know.